Hey guys, welcome back or welcome to my channel. My name is Chris and I'm so excited to make this video because it features fragrances that have a prominent note of incense. And if you do not know already, incense is one of my favorite notes in all of perfumery, particularly during the cold weather. It is January, it has been freezing, literally freezing cold, and I have been reaching non-stop for my incense fragrances. I have an insane amount of incense fragrances. In fact, I counted 27 and I narrowed it down to 20. It seems a little bit crazy to have that many perfumes featuring the note of incense. I have, unisex fragrances. I have some masculine leaning fragrances, some fragrances that definitely lean feminine, and kind of everything in between. When I look at the fragrances, the vast majority are niche because designer, incense is not a super common note. It's not a universally appealing note, and so it's not going to be in designer scents. Designer fragrances used to mean or equate to being more affordable. That is not the case anymore, and in many cases, some niche brands are much more affordable than designer options. I do have an affordable Middle Eastern fragrance, but the vast majority of them are, kind of on the mid to higher end. I just want to let you know ahead of time. But I really do think they are quite beautiful, and I'm excited to start spraying these because the last time I did this video, the room smelled amazing. And I can't believe I have waited 2 years to make an incense video. Before I get started, let us all know down below what your favorite incense perfume or fragrances are. And with that, I'm going to get started. I'm going to get started with a fragrance that I have been wearing a lot within the past week. I love this perfume. Penhaligon's. This is What About Arthur? It's What About Arthur? The World According to Arthur. This is a beautiful vanilla incense, aromatic, slightly citrusy, musky, woody incense fragrance. It is so warm and cozy. This could have been in my warm and cozy video, but I knew I was going to be showing it for this video, so that's okay. This perfume is almost perfection. It is almost a 10 out of 10. And based on the scent alone, or the scent profile and how it smells, it is a 10 out of 10. It loses major points because it has really terrible longevity. And I've always said longevity is not a deal breaker for me. I don't care. I will toss a perfume in my purse and respritz during the day. But this one in particular is very naughty, especially for what you pay. The longevity is not great, but I still think it is so magical. I wore this to work twice this past week and literally resprayed a couple times because I just cannot stop smelling myself when I spray this. Now, I've had people ask me if this smells like Babycat because it is an incensey vanilla. And my answer is there are a lot of differences. This doesn't have the spices that Babycat has. Babycat's very, very spicy. It's very, very peppery. This one has a teensy bit of grapefruit. This one has aromatics. I want to say lavender, sage, thyme. And it has some musk, but it still has this woody backbone. So they share some notes, but to me, they're not twins. They're not even, I wouldn't even say they're related, but they're kind of in the same wide category. Gorgeous. I wish it would last longer. So one of my very first incense fragrances, and this is one of the few I showed, I think the first year I had my channel, is called Megalium by Cardinal Barcelona. This is a simple incense. It's a very cinnamony incense, and it has, cloves and orange. It's not really a complex fragrance, but I wouldn't go as far to say that it's linear because I do smell the orange, I do smell the cinnamon, I do smell the spices, and I definitely smell this nice, warm, slightly smoky incense with a dash of pepper. And that's basically what you get with this fragrance. It smells nothing like Babycat because it doesn't have a strong vanilla or suede to it, but oh my gosh, really, really good in the cold weather. And it just has this holiday flair because it has that cinnamon and, baking spices in it. Okay, I'm gonna get the most popular and the most expected out of the way. We all know what was coming. We all know that the master incense right here, vanilla incense Babycat, was going to be shown. It is one of my favorite perfumes. I say time and time again, vanilla, incense, leather, resins, elemi, pepper. It's actually suede, but leather suede. Oh my gosh, literal Dominique Ropion masterpiece. I never get sick of this, but you have to kind of like you can't just love vanilla. You have to love spices pepper. You have to, you know, at least embrace a suede, leathery nuance. And the vanilla in here is absolutely gorgeous, and it is gourmand, and the incense is smoky and beautiful, very unisex, one of my most complimented fragrances. Its sister, Eau The Audacity. You really don't need both. Are they absolute twins? No, they were both created by Dominic Ropion, so they're going to be very similar. I would say this one, Eau The Audacity, maybe has, it's a little bit more sparkly. It has elemi resin in it that's a little bit stronger. I want to say the spices are a little bit stronger in this. This has more of a vanillic dry down, whereas Babycat is vanilla and amber. They both, you know, they both have terrific lasting power. And maybe Eau The Audacity is just a little bit sweeter. Maybe. I mean, it's a toss-up. They're so similar. At least 90% similar, but gorgeous. And the one really affordable option, I've been talking about this perfume for 2 years, Rifaaqat, one of the best Middle Eastern fragrances. This is a, you know, this is an impression of Babycat. Are they one-to-one? No, particularly in the opening, because this does not have the spices. This does not have the resins. The opening is very, very different. So if you really didn't enjoy the pepperiness of Babycat, you might like this better, but it does jump straight to the mid notes. It goes straight to that suede. So vanilla, suede, and then in the dry down. Once you get to the dry down, they smell awfully similar. That's when they smell the most similar. Babycat is stronger to me. It's sweeter. But man, this Rifaaqat is such a terrific option for the price. So if you're on a budget and can't get the original, this is a fantastic option. And this one, I want to say, well, this one I've had for 2 years, and I got it for, I want to say around $30, $35. I've seen it make the rounds on other, you know, on other social media platforms. So when that happens, it gets popular, more people buy it, and the price goes up. But I still think you can get it for under $50. Do I need it? Absolutely no. I keep it only to show you guys that there is an affordable option out there. I may just at some point release it, but it's so hard, and I think the bottle's so pretty. It's very minimalistic and lovely, quite heavy. Okay, I do have a couple of designer scents. They are higher end designer scents, so unfortunately not budget friendly. Myyrh Mystére by Tom Ford. This does smell similar to Ebene Fume. It's less smoky and it's less woody, and of course this has a dash or a heavy dose of myrrh. I do love the woodiness in here. Again, it smells like a Christmas tree, but it's not overly piney. And I want to say this has leather or suede, a very heavy myrrh. The myrrh is, you know, front and center. Sometimes myrrh can smell really medicinal. This has a little bit of that medicinal touch. I mean, it smells like myrrh if you've ever smelled real myrrh essential oil, but it's not overly medicinal, and it is on the sweeter side. Again, very similar to Ebene Fume. Another one, you know, I've talked about this a gajillion times. Rock the Myrrh. I love to wear it in the colder weather. I wear this all the time. You would never know because it doesn't look like I have a dent, but man, I spray this 1 to 2 times. If you spray this more than 3 times, it's going to choke you out. And I'm going to be honest, I don't like the opening. The opening is a little bit animalic because it has like evergreens and suede and like either black pepper or red pepper, but it just smells animalic. It has this animalic funk that I do not care for, but that burns off. And I would say about, you know, 10, 15 minutes. And then you just get to this beautiful, spicy, ambery, woody scent that has myrrh in it. Not nearly as prominent as Myyrh Mystére. It's not nearly as sweet. This is more ambery. It's more spicy. It has that, you know, pretty strong evergreen, so it has a green touch to it. You know, and pepper, it just, I find this really, really quite addictive, and it is so addictive as long as you do not overspray. I oversprayed once and I regretted it. I actually had to take off my, you know, my quarter zip because it was overwhelming. So for you guys who love a really, really strong scent, that one is strong. I'm gonna go with one that is also very addicting in a very, very strange way. It's the most unique out of all. It is called Basilica, and this is going to be the hardest incense. Even if you're an incense lover, this might be the most difficult, but this is definitely like a chewy, milky incense. This has very, very strong aromatics, rosemary, pepper for sure, maybe sage, maybe thyme. It's super, super aromatic. It almost smells like pizza toppings. So pizza toppings with a beautiful churchy incense and a lot of milk. It's very, very creamy, very, very warm. So this one I find uniquely addictive, even though I think because of that really strong rosemary, some people might find it, you know, kind of repulsive. But it smells like rosemary bread. You are baking rosemary bread. You are burning an incense stick in the background, and you are taking that rosemary bread and you're kind of dunking it in milk. That's the kind of overall vibe I get from this. So it's yummy to me, but it's not going to be for everybody. There's no doubt that incense perfumes really kind of thrive in the colder weather, and that's really the only time I want to wear them. There are a few exceptions. I have 2 incense fragrances, which are the only 2 incense perfumes I would consider wearing in the warmer weather because they are on a little bit on the fresh side. This one by Healy is called Cardinal, and I have worn this. This usually is my Christmas Eve mass fragrance because maybe it's because of the name, but also because how it smells. And I think the reason why I've worn this at least a couple years in a row is because other than this year, the last 2 or 3 years, Christmas, it wasn't freezing cold, it wasn't snowing, and it was a little bit on the warmer side. There's just something fresh about this fragrance. It's frankincense and myrrh, and it smells like incense before it is smoked, before a ceremony or before, you know, like a church ceremony, some sort of ceremony. It almost has a coldness to it, but not quite. You know, with that frankincense, it's still a little bit smoky. It's a little bit piney, but not overly smoky. But the freshness, I think, comes from, I want to say this has a linen or a cotton flower or cotton blossom, and it almost has the slightest hint of a floral, maybe almost clean and fresh, like soap shavings. Like you have incense prior to it being smoked and you just put a few little soap shavings on the top. So not overly smoky and not, you know, in your face. It does wear lightly for sure, which is good, particularly if you're going to be wearing it in a crowd. Another one that I have worn, I wore this within the past 3 years because we did have a year where Christmas was, I would say, on the warm side. It was like in the high 50s, low 60s, which in the Midwest, that is scorching hot. It's usually, you know, in the teens, 20s, 30s. And this one is Sancti by Le Liquide Imaginaire. This one to me is like incense in the Caribbean. It's a very, very happy incense fragrance. I want to say it has like grapefruit and pomelo, some tropical fruits, but make no mistake, this is incense all the way. The fruits and the tropical vibe are way in the background. Those notes just give it a freshness and a lightness, which is why it is one of the few incense fragrances that can be worn in the warm weather. And I do think this has aldehydes in here, so it's a little bit sparkly at the same time. Kind of in the same, maybe the same category, but not nearly as fresh. This is a lot more woody. This is Reve de Ossian, and in those beautiful bottles by Reve et Laurent. So not nearly as fresh as the other 2. Very, very much a liturgical scent. And this is very, very woody. This has a very heavy pine note or evergreen note. And I'm specifically thinking of the needles of an evergreen. Very green and very, very resinous. So not only do you have the greenness from the needles, but it almost smells like you took, you know, you went to a pine tree and you lifted off some bark and it had that sticky resin goo on it. It almost smells a little bit terpenic, but not, you know, like true turpentine. So maybe like a church in the middle of an evergreen forest or in the middle of a pine forest with, you know, a little bit of an ambery background. Very, very unisex, very, very lovely. And I definitely need to wear it more. Okay, the next incense fragrance is by far the sweetest. This is probably the most feminine leaning because it's so sweet. It's so vanillic and it is so delicious. This is Encens Suave by Myyrh Mystére. Oh my gosh, If you love incense and vanilla, this is right up your alley, but it is one that I would only wear in the cold weather, and it has to be really, really cold. And oftentimes this is my go-to when it's snowing because it's just so rich and so thick and so deep and so sweet and so vanillic. This has a note of coffee, you know, that's really, really in the background, because what this is basically, whether it has other notes or not, this is a smoky incense and a very, very heavy sweet vanilla. And I adore it. And it looks like I haven't really worn it, but let me tell you, another one, 1 to 3 sprays, otherwise you are going to choke yourself out. Delicious. That's been getting, it's been super, super cold here, so I've been wearing it a ton. The most masculine leaning incense, I initially bought this for myself. It's called Sacreste. And I bought this for myself, but it is way too masculine leaning for me to keep. And I ended up giving it to Pat. Picky Pat loves it. He loves incense fragrances. And it smells really, really good on him, but it's just too heavy, too dark, too deep, too spicy, and too rich for me. It's very, very earthy. It's got to have leather in here. I know it has cypriol. You know, cypriol is spicy and earthy and can be leathery. It does have, you know, smoky incense. It probably has geranium and maybe some aromatics. This might have lavender or thyme, I'm not sure. But it's a really, really lovely, it's a lovely incense fragrance. But again, it leans masculine because of the heaviness, the leatheriness, the depth of it, the spiciness, and it's just really, really peppery. That's why it smells really good on Picky Pat. Another one that Picky Pat loves, it's called LAVS by Filippo Sorcinelli, and I only have a 9 ml decant because the idea was Picky Pat loves this. I was going to get him a full bottle for Christmas, but then he told me that he wanted the new Creed Aventus, and that one is so ridiculously expensive. I said, you can only have one. You can only have one of the 2 fragrances because the budget doesn't support both. And so I ended up getting the Creed Aventus. I do have 2 of these 9 ml decants, so he'll probably get this sometime next fall because I really love the story behind it. I love to support this perfumer. This to me smells red, and I don't know if I'm letting my imagination run away with me because, you know, the perfumer behind this, Filippo, is actually, he started as a tailor and an organist, and he's the official tailor of the Pope and of the Vatican. And all the, you know, the holy garments are infused or imbued with this scent right here. So I get the sense that this smells red, but it also has geranium in it. So maybe that's why I'm thinking red too. Very, very spicy though. This smells very typical like Catholic incense. This might be the spiciest incense of them all. It's peppery, all sorts of spices. I want to say cloves, coriander, definitely black pepper, maybe a little bit of cardamom if there are other notes. It doesn't have cumin, or if it has cumin, I thankfully do not smell it. So a lovely, lovely, very classic incense fragrance with a nice, you know, background story. And no video about incense would be complete if I did not include kind of in many circles the Holy Grail, Avignon by Comme des Garçons. This is a fairly simple incense, not a lot of bells and whistles. This is straight up Catholic incense with woods. I mean, this smells like an old cathedral, a cathedral that's still in practice, where it has been burning incense for ceremonies or masses for years, and the wood, the old wood, has kind of sucked in, or it's imbued by the smoky incense that has been spread about during, you know, ceremonies and masses. So, you know, really, if you are just starting your incense journey and you say to yourself, I really want to get just a straightforward incense. I want to get something that really represents incense at the core without a lot of bells and whistles. This is it. This is absolutely it. I do have 2 other in the Comme des Garçons incense line. I have, now I'm going to do my best to pronounce this. This is Jaisalmer, I want to say. And this represents the spiritual teachings of Hinduism. And this is very, very dry. It's very, very powdery. I want to say it has cardamom and pepper, and I don't know the other spices or notes, but it almost has it's a very dry, powdery. It almost smells like incense with peanut butter powder. And there was something about the way it smelled when I tested it. I just found it very unique and quite addicting. I don't wear this as much. So the next one is Ourzazate. And this one represents the spiritual teaching of Islam. So it is, this one smells really, really good. It's spicy and it has tea. And I don't know if it's black or green tea, but the main note in here besides the incense and the spices is tea. So this is a tea incense fragrance. Something about it is really kind of fresh and warm and cozy and inviting. And it has aromatics in here. I want to say sage. And if it wasn't so peppery, because the pepper's pretty strong in the beginning, if that pepper was toned down a bit, it would almost have like a spa-like vibe with the tea and the incense and the sage, almost like a spa in the desert. So 3 really good incense fragrances from that series 3 from the house of Comme des Garçons, and I think that's it. Yep, that's it. Those are the only fragrances for my incense video. I have a lot more that I will probably be decluttering because frankly, I have too many incense fragrances and I don't wear them all. I love them all, but I'm trying really, really hard not to keep fragrances that have too much overlap. But when it comes to notes that I love, you know, like incense and vanilla and woods, I do make an exception and have some overlap. So that was it. Thanks again for sticking around. Thanks for watching. If I did not happen to mention your favorite incense fragrance, let us all know down below. I hope you enjoyed your time with me, and I certainly enjoyed making this video because I love talking about incense. And with that, I hope to see you on the next one.